So here we have today Sam Romano. He's a candidate for the Calare seat and he's a member of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party. And how are you going today?
I'm going well, thank you.
That's good. So first of all, let's start off. What is at the front of your mind going into this election?
The foremost problem that I can see that I want to tackle is water security. We as a region haven't put a new dam in for at least 30 years. The region's growing with population, and as you can see, if you hear it on the media, that we're on level 4 water restrictions, and it's sad because it's disappointing that the government hasn't provided funding or even looked into a new dam. More water security. People, they're very disappointed, disillusioned with our government of the day. They're not very happy. That they think they're being treated as second-class citizens. This government's spraying money all over Sydney, but yet they forgot about the Central West, in particular the seat of Calare, because it's been a safe seat for the Nationals for so long that they take it for granted that they're going to win. And that's disappointing, and that's why I've taken this up. Now, over the last 2 weeks, I've continued to door knock. I think the best way to connect with people is to talk to them face to face. Now, I didn't know what I didn't know what to expect, but it was very warm, very welcoming to be appreciated that a politician or a potential politician has actually knocked on their door and asked them, you know, what are they concerned about? What are their needs? What can I do to help? And the water one's the biggest one. Mm-hmm. The other topic is jobs, medical, mental health. Mental health sort of goes hand in hand with, you know, particularly farmers that don't have water to keep their stock, their livestock. They've had to sell it for peanuts, you know, just get rid of it. They're not, a lot of them aren't, they're probably too proud to put their hand out for help. And this government has provided a drought relief program which people are falling through the cracks. If you've probably already heard that, you know, 91 pages of documents to fill out, and you need to be an accountant or a solicitor. You probably need both of them with you to fill them out. And so people are disillusioned with the fact that the government's saying, oh, we've got the money there, we've got $1.6 billion that hasn't been touched. Well, is it there just to show people that, oh yeah, the money's there, but have they made it difficult on purpose? That's what they're saying. Have they done this just so we don't get the funds that we need to survive? People are struggling to survive, and that's what I'm hearing. It was very sad. Yeah, I'd walk away from some people with a tear in my eye. I really could understand their situation. Some of them are going to lose their farms. They just can't come up with the mortgage payment. Yeah, there's just so much that I don't know where to start. It's just so much. And this government has failed, and they're all saying the same thing. They're sick and tired of the two major parties. They want to move away from that. They want to see somebody that's really passionate about what's going on here, and not just go with the flow. And that's what we've been getting. You know, they're used to it. They're complacent. Their representation's been lost, and I do believe that totally. That the representation's been appalling. A lot of people didn't even know who their federal member was, and I don't want to hit below the belt. You could say, you know, I'm not trying to do that. I'm reporting back what I've heard from people.
Yeah.
You know, they don't even know who he is, and that's sad.
Yeah. Beautiful. So you are a part of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party.
Yeah.
And typically they were about lessening gun laws, increasing the rights of fishers. How do you feel that party has progressed, and are these issues going to be at the front of your mind coming into this election?
It started off by a gentleman called John Tingle. John Tingle was a radio announcer, in fact, in Sydney, and one of his passions were target shooting, I understand. And I think when he thought he'd have a crack at Parliament, state Parliament, because he thought I think the gun people were getting a hard time about everyone who's got a gun's a criminal. It's not true. It's not about guns. So that the name Shooters, that's where it started. I mean, it was just a party that it got elected, and it's grown since then. But we've gone to the fishers and farmers to try and give people give them the true value of what we stand for. We're basically the real country party, right? Yeah. Now, I don't know anyone in the country that doesn't have a firearm, and the firearm isn't to terrorise people. It's a tool. I owned a farm. I come off a farm, a big farm, and I was a dry land farm. Now, I had to use a firearm to euthanize. What's the word? We have to cut there and fix it up. Yeah. Anyway, I had to do that. I had to euthanize, sheep or cattle that were injured or sick, and so yeah, we've grown from that. Just a simple small party to do with looking after people with firearms in the right way, the proper way, legally, to the fishers and farmers. And that's what people are attracted to, that we've got all those titles, and that's what we stand for. We are here to help people in the bush. And we're not afraid, we're only a small party, but we're not afraid to speak out. And as we saw in the state election, the first time round, Phil Donato was probably our first, or besides Robert Borzak, who's in the upper house, but the lower house was Phil Donato, who beat the National Party in the first round. I mean, he got in only by a small margin, but after 2.5 years, he's really attached himself. People have attached themselves to him, and he works hard for the communities. He works hard, and from that, the second time round, he got over 60% of the whole seat. He won by 63% margin. So it's sent a signal out to the major parties. Hey, we're not a joke. We're not a bunch of cowboys here. We seriously are people that are looking after people. That's what's missing, the connection. Yeah. People feel that once they've voted in the past, this is how it's worked. Once you vote for, in our case, the National Party, you vote for the National Party, they've become complacent. They kind of know they're going to win every time they run. This has sent a strong message to them that you're not doing what is helping us. Once you're elected, you've been bowing down to the Liberal Party. You're not fighting strong enough for us. You're not really fighting for us because it's a safe seat. And this is what I've been hearing from people. They've worked it out. You need somebody pretty much like an independent, and that's what we are. We're like independents. Particularly if there's a hung parliament in this federal election, it'll put me in an extremely good position to be able to negotiate with either party for what I want and what the people want in Calare. Yeah. So it's going to be challenging to win the election. I don't know how people are thinking out there, but if it's any result from the state election, people have had enough of the major parties. Yeah. That's what I'm hearing.
And so moving on, how will you address kind of the wage issues? You did mention that jobs are one of your top priorities. So do you have a particular policy that's promoting small to medium businesses in the regional area?
Well, the drought, nobody can help. I'll admit that. But as I said earlier, that water security brings confidence, and confidence seems to flow on. When there's no confidence in the community, it's a very depressing state that people get themselves into. So the other side of what I want to do in Calare is a chairlift. In other words, let's look at other options to invite people to the Central West, which includes Bathurst, Mudgee, Orange. What have they got to see out here? Okay, we've got beautiful wineries. Bathurst has got the racetrack. Orange, I'd like to see a chairlift from Lake Canobolas going up to Mount Canobolas with a restaurant on top. That'll employ a lot of people. There'll be tourism all year round. Mudgee, I'd like to speak to Mudgee and see what we can do there. They've got a beautiful football stadium there. But, you know, what we need to do is attract people here. That's number one. Number two is how do we get them here quickly rather than bottleneck through the Blue Mountains. Now, this road over the Blue Mountains has been talked about for 100 years, and all we get is promises from the government at the moment. Every time there's an election, they're always going to build a new road over the mountains, they're going to put a freeway there. It's never happened, and people are waking up to that. There's a lot of promises made prior to the elections, and it's very disappointing that after they get their votes and they win, they tend to just go away and you don't hear from them. So that would be another one to improve businesses. I think we need to get better access, whether it's rail, whether it's roads. We need to fight. I need to fight for that at a federal level to stand up and say, you know, we want our share. We're growing. We're inviting people to the Central West to live, and that's come from all the councils. There's a policy that we've all got in place about attracting people to move from the cities into the regional areas, and we're doing that, but yet we don't have the infrastructure. And it will make a big difference if we can get that road over the mountains. In Europe, they build roads through mountains like very quickly in bridges. Between tunnels, bridges, between those two things, putting a road over the Blue Mountains, it'll be a costly exercise, but it can be done. If the government can put a tunnel under Sydney Harbour Bridge, I'm sure that's not going to be a problem. So it's not a matter of they can't do it. Do they really want to do it? Yep. So we need to push them to say, yeah, we want this area to expand. We want businesses to be able to travel from the regional areas to Sydney quicker, whether it's rail or trucks or vehicles, and that will all increase the job. It'll just work hand in hand. Yep. When you've got good access, you've got quick roads, businesses will come out here. It'll encourage businesses to come and live out here, work out here, and live out here at the same time.
And in saying that, you're saying you want people to move out here, do you have a particular immigration policy about getting people from overseas to come into the regional areas? We've got fruit pickers, seasonal fruit pickers. They do come to Orange and Mudgee to pick grapes and cherries, depending on the season. Interesting you've asked that question, because not long ago I met a gentleman from the Italian consulate who came to Orange. Phil Donato introduced me to him as the Deputy Mayor, and I had a great chat with him, and he's now put Orange, he didn't even know Orange existed, and he spent a couple of days up here and took him around to the orchards and showed him all around the place. Absolutely loved it. He was disappointed that Orange wasn't on there. He said that it wasn't on their list of like in Italy, people go looking for a visa to go to Australia, but they only had Griffith somewhere in the Central Coast to pick nuts, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't even know about Orange, so now they're including Orange on the list. So tourists and who want to work, who want a working visa, we've got Orange on the list. So that was great news. So he's going to promote that people can come to Orange, and once they get to Orange, of course, they've got the whole region. Then they can go to Mudgee. They didn't know it existed. The only place they had was was Griffith. Yeah. Yeah, that's the only place that they had on their list. So it was a great experience. It worked in well. Yeah, that's good. And so, we are at a regional university. Is there anything in particular that you believe will benefit and get more students out from the cities and into the regional universities, and stop regional students going to the cities to study?
Well, I'd support that universities be free of any charges. I think it's disgraceful that students have to pay. Now, I've got a son who's still paying off his HECS. Was it HECS? Probably 10 years ago or more. He went through the HECS system and he's still paying it off. He's struggling, he works, and a lot of it still goes back to paying off the loan. The same with techs. I'd like to see them free, like when I went to tech it was free. Yeah. But to stop students from leaving once they get educated at a university, I think as I said earlier, we need to bring business to our region. The only way you can do that is by improving the roads, to improving the access, speeding it up. That is a big deal, right? If people can get here in, say, 2.5 hours, instead of 3.5 hours, you cut an hour off it by putting a decent road in. A bypass, right? At the moment, the bottleneck, the roads are okay until you get to the Blue Mountains. And then it's a disaster. You just don't know what you're going to find, and particularly on long weekends and that, it's always bottlenecked. So we need to go around it or under it in some places and put a decent highway in, like they've got going to Newcastle and like they've got going to Wollongong. They've got north and south, but nothing out west. Again, that is a reflection on this government. It hasn't really cared about growth. It's all about winning the election, and once they do that, you don't hear from them.
Yeah.
That's what people are telling me.
Okay. And so, climate change. It's a bit of a big issue. And so Calare is one of the 5 electorates that are most affected by the climate change. And so what are your policies and what's your stance on climate change?
I think we're all responsible for the environment we live in, and we should respect the environment. I'm not convinced that climate change actually works. I know that there has been a long drought, but I think I wouldn't be on my own to say that there's no definite proof that climate change exists. Now, to cover the climate change, that's why I spoke about putting in more dams, because when it does rain, and we do have floods occasionally, that's when we should take advantage of having these storage areas in preparation for that. We've got to look after the environment. The policy from the shooters, fishers, farmers, it's basically all about that we should work in with the environment and take care of things, do the right thing. Like, why don't we get rid of plastic bottles and go to glass bottles? Yeah. Glass is easily to reuse. I mean, they can melt it down and start again. I think plastic's been one of the biggest problems that the environment's had. Everything's plastic coffee cups. It's just, they end up in the ocean. We certainly don't support that. We want to be clean as well. It's common sense. Yeah, we've got to leave something for our future kids.
So, do you favour the rate relief for farmers or any other subsidies or supports for farmers in particular?
I favour the rate. Of course, I favour the rate relief. Absolutely, whatever we can do for the farmers. Tax relief, interest-free loans would be a good start. But make it easy for them.
Yeah.
Don't give them 100 pages to fill out. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Right, it's there, but I can't get to it. Same as the National Disability Insurance Scheme. I mean, people, they've been waiting 12 months to get funds for that. They just keep falling through the cracks because it's just so complicated.
Yeah.
The management hasn't been done properly, right? It should be easier for people to access funding for the drought. By the time these people get the funding, the drought might be over. That's what I'm saying. People need money now. People need relief now. How do we do it? That's a discussion we need to have. If I make it to Canberra, that's what I'm going to be pushing.
Yeah.
Why can't the local post office in these small communities, who knows the people personally, why can't they have some system there where they can fill out? If there's fraudulent business done, that'll be found out down the track. Okay, not when it's too late, but there'll be a double check. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be easier.
Yeah.
That's what people are telling me. It's just too hard.
Okay. And you did mention that one of the other issues that you was at the front of your mind was vegan terrorism.
Oh yes, that's another one that, in fact, at pre-poll only last week, 2 gentlemen came back. They went in. They came back. They stopped to talk to me, and both of them work at a feedlot not far from Bathurst. And they said they've just had a major incident with vegan activists / terrorists. Okay, chained themselves to the gates, created havoc. They just stopped the whole production. Now there's 250 people that work there. It's not a small place. I can't tell you where it is because I didn't catch where it was, but they employed 250 people. They were out of work for about a week. They blockaded trucks couldn't get in. That's 250 people that work in there, but then they affected the transport companies. That was a cattle feedlot, okay?
Yeah.
Now, what was very, very disappointing was right at the end when he said that the leader of these people, the leader of this group, said the boss who owns the place, or was one of the directors, don't quote me who it was, but it was somebody high up in the feedlot, said, "What do you guys want to go away?" And this man replied, "Give us 6 of your steers and we'll leave you alone." So they were bribing them. They're basically saying, "Give me some meat and we'll go away." Now that's come from someone I don't even know. And I didn't make that story up, by the way. True story. It happened only last week. So what I'd be doing with that is I'd be pushing for stronger penalties, jail sentence. If somebody broke into your house, think about it. Is that not a criminal offence? Yeah. So why wouldn't this be treated the same? You know, they're going in, breaking into somebody's property, a legitimate business, providing food for people, and because they oppose the locking up of animals, which is food for humans, for most of us, because they oppose that, they think they've got the right to disrupt people's livelihoods. It's a criminal offence. I'd be treating it as a criminal offence, and I'd be pushing for jail sentences for these people. And now it has been brought up before, and neither side of government wanted to know about it, right? They didn't want to help.
Yep.
So I will be pushing that one as well.
Okay. So back to the climate change. What is your response to the current and the former leaders' approach to the climate change and their policies? So. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what their policies were. I can tell you that I've heard of carbon credits. I've heard of, you know, if you're going to be polluting in China, you buy a property in Australia, you lock it up, you put thousands and thousands of trees in there, and that will give you a tax break or a carbon tax break, because the pollution you're doing over in China is being covered by Australia, and it's locking up farms. And I had an example of that as well, just to take you through that one. It was further out west. A Chinese property a property from China was purchased. I think it was about 10,000 acres. They fenced it, no trespassing, you can't go in there. And they planted thousands upon thousands of trees, and they're only about 600 mil apart. So that was about 10 years ago. I know where it is, been there. And all it's caused is havoc for the neighbouring properties that grow wheat and lambs, right, that produce lambs. That property is full of feral pigs, full of feral animals. Nobody's controlling it, and it's destroying the surrounding area. And, you know, pigs can travel up to, 4-5 kilometres a night. So that's the downside of that. That to me is not right. It's stupidity. We're selling off Australian land to foreign companies. Then they're locking it up and causing problems for the locals. Do you follow what I'm trying to say? I mean, that's to do with climate change and carbon credits. So they're allowed to pollute the air over there because they've got a balance in Australia, because the whole world is one unit. So that's what they're trading their pollution for the trees that provide whatever they call it for the atmosphere.
Yeah. Okay, and is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, that last bit there wasn't real clean, like it wasn't probably explained properly.
No, that's
but we know trees release
Oxygen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where the balance is. That they've planted thousands and thousands of trees, and that gets them out of trouble. So they can keep polluting over there. Mm. Yeah, and that wouldn't be the only place they've done it to. There'd be plenty of properties that other countries have purchased in Australia. This government should never let that happen.
Mm. So is it are you like the local people to own the local land and not have it being owned by overseas people who aren't present, regardless of whether it's for carbon credits or if it's for whatever?
I'd like to see our party's policy on that is that we cap it to $1 million. That'll stop these large foreign investors buying up massive amounts of land in Australia. Huge properties are being sold to overseas companies, and their only reason for purchasing that property would be to make a quick buck. Mm. We don't support that. I don't support that. I think it should be capped so they don't buy large parcels of Australia, because Australia will end up in the hands of foreigners. Mm. And that's what we don't want to see. We want to keep our country here for ourselves. If you want to buy land in Australia, it should be capped to maybe a residential property, but not sell off. We're selling off all our farming land. It's not right.
Perfect. Mm. Well, unless there's anything else you'd like to add?
No, there's probably a lot more, but yeah, if you want to continue, I'm happy.
Well, I think I'm good. And
you're okay.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Just so basically, what we're all about is we'd like to be considered as the old country party. We are for the people in the bush. That's why this party has been so successful, because we've got people like Phil Donato, and hopefully, if I can be the same, to actually stand up and have that interaction with the community, and not be an elitist. I don't need to talk to them. They're not, wealthy people, or I'm not in the same league. I think everyone's equal, and that's what I'm hearing from people that I've been door knocking with. They just feel left behind. Keep voting National, keep getting nothing, and let's hope that this election there's going to be a big change, and in a short time I think they'll see the difference, and if they're not happy in 3 years' time, they can change back. You're not stuck with them forever, and that's what I've been telling people. Because you've been voting one way for so long, it's okay to change. It's okay to say no. And that's sort of been working well. People have actually got the courage now to say, look, I'm sick of the same old every time there's an election. People are sick of the promises. People are sick of the funding that all of a sudden appears. For example, we had one only a few days ago in Orange. Conservatorium was made front page. I've been on council now for about 7 years, and we were asking for funding 7 years ago for this project, and it was only announced the other day, and I think it was quoted on television that if you vote for me, I'll give you the money. That's no different to the stadium that was promised at the state election by our Premier. I mean, really? Yeah. I take offence to that. Most Aussies won't cop that. To me, it's very close to bribery and corruption. So that's what people are disillusioned with. People don't forget things like that. We're more. I'd like to think that we're what you see, what you get. What you see is what you get. Last night I was at a forum. I mightn't be the most polished speaker, but you know what? I feel connected with people, because most people aren't polished. They just like to be themselves, relax. That's what I think last night was good. There wasn't that many people there, but I felt connected with them because I was speaking their way. I was speaking their language. Yeah. Then that's what it's all about. You've got to be connected. We've got to stop. Politicians have got to stop thinking they're above everybody else, because they've got to remember who put them there. Yeah, that's how I operate, even on council. Yeah. You've got to respect people, and not getting things done when you say you are going to get things done. That's disrespectful. Yeah. Now, I won't go any further with that. Okay. But yeah, that's what I've been hearing. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Okay.
Thank you so